All right, I recorded this whole video earlier today, but it sounded weird and pretentious, so I'm redoing it. I also think I'm more active and productive at night.
You're a creature of the night, Michael.
So, struggling as a small business and making a film no one will see. Those two things are seemingly disconnected, but I'm gonna try to find the thread that connects them because I think there is one just in my case. The first thing I've been struggling with lately is my creative identity. I have aspirations to be a filmmaker.
Christy.
Short narrative, DIY filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, what have you. But as I've done other videos on, sports has been a big part of my business lately, so you have to pay the bills. I mean, I would film paint dry for the right price, and sports is a great market, there's money to be made there, and it's quite fun to shoot. But the creative identity problem within that is that to use Instagram as an example, my Instagram profile has become overpopulated with sports content. And the worry there is that if I have a potential client, because a lot of us are doing business through Instagram, that's how we reach people, that's how people see our work, that's how our work gets shared. So if that potential client goes on my Instagram profile and sees just sports from top to bottom, they might say, well, I don't need sports, I need this or I need that. The second thing I'm really struggling with lately, and it kind of relates a little bit to that first point, is social media. And again, I'll use Instagram as an example. This is actually mostly my fault, but Instagram has kind of poisoned and polluted the way in which I see a frame, photography, or even video. What I mean is I'm shooting a ton of vertical video and portrait vertical photos now. And for what? Because they told us that it would take up more real estate on people's feed and you would get more reach and engagement. Like, who gives a shit if you get a couple more clicks or a couple more likes? I guess you could argue, well, if it gets seen with that one or two extra people and they share it with someone that might hire you, then yes, it is important. But to use a specific example, I was out in Montana, I was taking photos, what I thought were pretty cool, unique, fun, interesting photos of a Wrangler at sunrise. And as I was going through these photos and editing, I was like, holy shit, I didn't even take this photo of this guy on his horse with the sunrise in the background. I didn't even take it, wide angle, like horizontally. And it just bugged me because my mind was saying, well, at the end of this trip, I'll do a photo dump, I'll do a post. And I'm poisoned by thinking, well, they all gotta be vertical. And it's my own fault, I admit that, but it's a problem nonetheless.
It's not you, it's me.
The second part of this struggle with social media, or again, Instagram, lately has been the compression. We are encouraged to shoot vertical 9x16 reels. Instagram copied TikTok. They said, we want you to do short form vertical video reels.
What do you want?
Then what they do is even worse because they juice the first couple reels, or they randomly select reels to juice and show to more people. They get more likes, they get more engagement. They tap into that thing that you want, which is the clicks, the likes, all this and that.
What?
Ooh, there you go.
That's not consistent. They just randomly do it. Your reels, they're not all gonna be that successful, but more importantly, what myself and other videographers have noticed is they'll go back in a month, 2 months, 3 months, up to 6 months later, and they will compress the shit out of certain reels. So if you have a pinned reel on the top of your profile on Instagram that you're proud of, that it's indicative or representative of the type of work you do, got some great shots in it, and you love it, you got it pinned at the top. Someone might click on it one day randomly and it looks like it was shot on a Nokia flip phone or like shot on a potato.
Potatoes.
They compress it to save server space. Sometimes they revert it back to like a slightly better quality, but overall it's just frustrating to know that they've copied this formula with TikTok, with other social media platforms, I think just TikTok. And then they kind of like punish you and they make you see these things in a certain lens and do these things, and it's just frustrating. It's just a constant struggle.
You lose!
And I admit that a lot of this is my fault in that I shouldn't be polluted by shooting vertically. I shouldn't just say, well, it's gonna be for Instagram, so I gotta shoot vertically. But me and many other photographers, videographers out there, we get a lot of our business through Instagram. So you want to certainly put your best foot forward. And I also don't want to insinuate that this is Instagram's problem. It's more my problem.
We got a problem here?
And I have to see things with the lens of let me capture this the best way possible, as opposed to let me be beholden to a certain app, a certain platform, and win there, as opposed to just capture and create the best thing I possibly can. The next thing I'm really struggling with is money. Financials, budget, pricing, what have you. I've talked about this in another video, and it was actually just more or less one incident recently that kind of made me reconsider how I want to tackle this as a business. I'll give you the example.
Exhibit A.
I was contacted to do a media day for a high school JV and varsity lacrosse. It was going to be over 40 players. The parent reached out to me, hey, how much do you charge? Our coach loves your work. You did work for her last year. What can we do to get you on board? This is the day, blah, 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 blah.
Everybody getting this so far?
I reach back out. Yes, I just do this based on this number. It equals out to X amount of dollars per player, to which this person replied, help me understand this. I was under the impression, because this is the way our old photographer did it, that you would do this shoot and the edit and you would put all the photos online for the families and the parents to purchase. We can guarantee you that we would definitely purchase the senior photos, but it's up to everybody else what they want to purchase. To which I replied,
What are you, fucking nuts?
absolutely not. I mean, I was nice about it, but I was firm, and I was proud of myself for being firm in my response. I might have got a little snarky in the email, but it's like the analogy I made in the email was, you don't see wedding photographers do this. You don't see wedding photographers take thousands and thousands of photos, edit several hundred, put them online for the bride and groom to hopefully purchase. That's just not how it works. That would be like going into a restaurant and saying, can you cook everything on the menu? Go ahead and bring it out to the table. I want to look at it and smell it, but I don't want to pay for, I only want to pay for the stuff that I end up eating. It's like,
It's fucking molten, asshole!
fuck you. Like, no. I was actually honest too, in that in my response, I said, typically you'll see this from amateur, non-professional, sometimes momtographers, people that are just on the sideline hoping that they can make a couple bucks from going to shoot a game, but this is not a business model that I adhere to, and no, I'm not gonna do this. It was just super frustrating, and it frustrated me to the point where that, with my creative identity, with all this bullshit that Instagram's doing, these struggles, my frustrations kind of came to this point, this crescendo, this apex, where I kind of threw my hands up, and it really got me thinking about, what do I want to do? Most importantly, with my time. I think, as many people have probably said, time is your most valuable asset. So with my passion for and love for and aspirations to be a filmmaker, I started asking myself, are all these things I'm doing with my business getting me any closer to creating films, documentaries, narrative films, fun, passionate, goofy DIY, no pressure projects, to maybe more serious documentary topics? And I couldn't answer that question. I don't know if what I'm doing now is getting me closer to that point. I'm gonna try and connect this as best I can to all of the aforementioned struggles of my small production company. I'm working on a documentary that technically I started working on in 2017 when I started converting our home movies to DVDs and DVDs to MP4s, and the documentary is about my brother. He was an unbelievable musician. I don't want to use words like prodigy and savant. He would probably call himself an idiot savant. And I was super fortunate to be able to play music with him in our band, where we toured all over the US, a good chunk of Europe, and even some of Canada. Sadly, he passed in 2016, and about a year or two after, I started thinking about collecting stories and interviews from people, and could I craft this into a documentary? At first, I was just plugging away at it, talking about it more than actually working on it here and there. Part of that was because I was doing that trap that filmmakers do where, well, I need to wait until I get the good gear. Fast forwarding several years after converting all these DVDs to MP4s, collecting B-roll, collecting random online footage, I even hired a music and entertainment lawyer to help me out, because when I started making this, I thought, well, I'm an aspiring filmmaker. I want to submit this to, smaller film festivals, documentary category, or even documentary-specific film festivals. And this is where the ego started going of people will recognize me and say this is great, and it will get laurels and do well and spread, and it could help establish me. And I say ego because A, it's basically as I kind of did with the music. It's riding the coattails of my brother, of someone who, quite frankly, was way more talented than I could ever be, and using that as a trampoline, as a launch pad, the following and the fans that he built up to kind of hopefully springboard my own filmmaking. Obviously, I kind of knew all along this was a little bit of a grimy idea, but none of that ended up actually mattering. It didn't matter because I came to find out right away that there was legal issues. When I started looking into the music itself, our library of music, I say our, I was in the band for long enough. Our library of music is spread around from, ASCAP to Orchard Enterprises to, what's the other one, BMI? I forget all the names, I'm not really good with music licensing, but it became this headache. So someone suggested that, well, why don't you just screen it? And this idea took a while. It was like Inception though, the seed was planted. And I said, yeah, that would be cool. So as time went on, people would ask me, hey, how's it going? Especially once I started filming the interviews. How's the documentary coming along? Blah, 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 blah. And I usually had to lie to them, oh, it's coming along. Meanwhile, I'm busy trying to find client work and pay my bills. And that's the trick, is that I could only work on it when I had money in the bank, and I don't have money in the bank if I'm not shooting, jobs and making money. What's interesting is that I eventually came to realize that screening it for friends and family in lieu of releasing it online, submitting it to film festivals, making any sort of money, not that the goal was ever to make a penny off this, but just doing it for friends and family and some fans, people that knew him, people that loved him, that was more liberating and freeing than the initial constraint, than the initial limitation that it seemed like. So as the years have gone on, because it has taken years, this has become this kind of freedom that I'm gonna just screen this for friends and family, and who gives a shit? I can also not worry about what music I'm using and trying to track down every photographer that took every single picture and give them credit. I would always want to do that, but it became this headache that I was like, how am I gonna overcome all of these legal issues? Truthfully, I'm not. But I ended up cutting a trailer for it just to make it real. I knew once I cut that trailer that I would have to see this through. Actually, I'll show the trailer here.
The phone rang, and it was Eric calling from across the street saying, hey, Drew, come over, we're gonna start a band.
I mean, Eric was the most creative person that I know, hands down.
There was this unquenchable desire to tell stories through music. It was 4 young kids creating without the supervision of a director and adult.
We would show up in gym shorts, and there'd be these people there with spiked mohawks sneering at us. And when we played, things changed because we were pretty brutal.
They were younger than all of us, and they were better than all of us.
No remorse for coming, you're so trained. Build the trust and violate it while your kids are out there getting high.
Something woven deep within just kind of cracked open with the time, the context, the world.
He was on to rap cassettes. He had briefcases with cassettes in there, and he'd have them lined up.
It cuts across all these genres, and he was a sponge in terms of soaking up the culture. The creativity would be pouring out of him, and you could see it constantly.
But most of what he played, he did himself from all those endless years of growing up just playing his guitar.
Then Eric got into deeper cuts of punk. All you needed was that pushover, and that was off and running.
It was so different from anything else I'd ever heard.
The lead singer of the band before him, he's like, dude, I ain't never seen anything like this. He's like, this is crazy.
Best guitar player I've ever played with. I played with a lot of good guitar players.
He would go to shows, schlepping his guitar with him, and people would be like, oh, who's this hippie? And then he'd start playing, and they'd be like, oh, he ain't no hippie.
To stand up at a hardcore punk show with an acoustic guitar, man, that guy's got balls.
One of the things that was amazing about his writing was that it appealed to so many different people.
The majesty of creating good art is so contextual and so specific to the moment. It's a wonder that anything good is ever made at all.
Good music is good music, no matter how you label it.
I should say that the problem with that trailer is if I didn't know who he was, I would say, why should I care about this character? We didn't really establish like a narrative arc. I didn't ask in that trailer, what does this character want? Are they gonna get it? Are they not gonna get it? I think there's problems with that trailer. It's really just kind of montagey, but I wanted to put it out there just to make the whole project real and to generate some buzz with friends and family. So, pivoting back, full circle. Pivot! Struggling as a small business. I talked about this in another video where one mistake I think I made when I started my business was I went from a full-time job to my business, and I made that switch during COVID. I said, see you later, I'm going full-time in my business. I think I made it too early. I should have moonlighted a little bit more as a photographer, videographer, filmmaker, scaled back to part-time with my job at the time, and just kind of had a little bit more of a financial cushion. Now, what I'm realizing is with all of those struggles, my creative identity, the social media struggle, and the financial struggle of budgeting, pricing, making money, clients, all this crap, I'm really starting to ask myself, where is my time best spent? So much so that I'm starting to wonder if I went back to a restaurant I used to work at and just picked up part-time shifts. Would that be a better use of my time to work several part-time shifts, come home, work on the documentary 1-2 days a week, and be super selective with any jobs I take outside of that? Would that be a better use of my time? I'm not saying it would, I'm not saying it wouldn't. I just know that constantly having to chase down schools for sports stuff and random corporate clients for this and other commercial videos and short form marketing ad stuff for social media, it's become this big headache. It's really draining. I'm not complaining. I don't think I've earned the right to get the projects I want all the time that pay the best, but making the film that no one will see, or at least nobody outside of that theater, seems to be the one thing I know for sure that's how I want to spend my time. So there's a whole philosophical side to this. I, again, just want to clarify, I know some of this sounds like entitlement, like I should be getting the work I want all the time for the prices I want. It's not that. It's just that I think our time is very limited, our time is very valuable. I want to work on the projects that fulfill me to a certain extent, and that now, as I've realized, the reward is in and of itself doing the work. The reward isn't in people recognizing it and sharing it and liking it. It's getting people together and sharing in a moment, sharing in real time with them, face to face, things that you can recollect on and remember and laugh about and cry about or whatever. So in ending, to be a little cheesy, I'm gonna end this with a quote from a book that I read that I don't wanna say changed my life, but had a strong, profound impact on me a little over 10 years ago. You must cultivate activities that you love. You must discover work that you do, not for its utility, but for itself. Think of something that you love to do for itself, whether it succeeds or not, whether you are praised for it or not, whether you are loved and rewarded for it or not, whether people know about it and are grateful to you for it or not. How many activities can you count in your life that you engage in simply because they delight you and grip your soul? Find them out, cultivate them, for they are your passport to freedom.